Tyler Cauble, it's nice to be talking to you today.
Yeah, David, thanks for having me on, man. It's been a little bit since we connected, and looking forward to catching up with you.
So why don't you tell us all a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I started off in commercial real estate about 8 years ago. I was one of the rare few that actually got to go right into it. Dropped out of college and honestly just got offered a job. And so I started off as a broker. I got to see how property management and development was handled as well. So in February of 2018, I left and founded my own company. So now we run a commercial real estate brokerage, a commercial property management company, and a development company, all based in East Nashville. We do have some projects in Chattanooga, but we're kind of working on everything from a 6-bay car wash conversion to micro restaurant units, which is about a $2.1 million project, all the way up to a $100 million ground up redevelopment 5 minutes outside of downtown Nashville. So kind of everything in between.
Yeah, so you're similar to me in the sense that we both got into an element of real estate that we really liked. For me, it was more residential. For you, it was commercial. And then we built businesses around what we were investing in, as opposed to the typical investor that's kind of like, I don't want to deal with business. I just want to own the property and collect the checks. Can you share a little bit about how you ended up taking that road and maybe where your passion was with that side of real estate?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've always kind of had this entrepreneurial spirit where I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to kind of control my destiny. And I got a great experience when I was working with that boutique developer when I first got started, because they had everything in-house. They had construction, development, property management, and brokerage. And so I got to see kind of how that flowed compared to some of the other companies that we worked with that were a little more disjointed. And I just felt like, you know what, vertical integration is the best thing that I could do for my business, because, you know, we all get into real estate to create passive income, but I kind of wanted to take it a step further to create a business as well around my passive income. So, you know, if I wanted to grow this bigger empire of real estate investments, at some point it is going to take up time, no matter how passive you want it to be. And so by having people that work with me that can help kind of offload all or some of the workload, it just makes my life that much easier.
Now, you mentioned the phrase of vertical integration. Can you describe what you mean by that?
Yeah, so that's basically going all in on a niche, like real estate, right? So we've got brokerage, property management, and development. If we end up adding construction, then almost every single part of the deal, except for consultant-specific work, we would have our hands in. So right now, as we're doing our 506B or 506C syndications, just depends on how we structure it, there's seven different ways that we can make income on a single opportunity, which makes it a lot easier to do one deal instead of having to go out and do 7.
It's exactly the same reason I did it. If we can do everything within our own team, we can charge less money to the clients, or not have to charge more for extra services because you're making it in several different places. So,
or at least you know that it's going to get done right. That's why we started doing it.
Every business I ever started was born out of my frustration with the people that I had to depend on to do the job not doing it well. Was it similar for you?
Oh, it's the exact same. Every time we go into a new project, I tell the contractor, I'm like, give me a reason not to start a construction company. Give me a reason. And they always laugh.
I did that with lenders, with mortgage officers, like just the amount of times I heard someone say, oh, I don't work past 5 o'clock. I don't answer the phone past 5. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you, because that's when my clients want to talk to me, and that's when we got to work and everybody else has to do this. So I'm just going to start a company where we work past 5 o'clock. We don't have to worry about that problem anymore.
Right. We call those banker's hours.
Yep. Banker's hours. That's exactly right. So, you know, first off, I want to say, you look like someone took the personification of Nashville, threw it in the gym, covered it in mossy oak, and set it loose on the world of real estate. Can you tell me, like, what does your daily schedule look like?
That's awesome, man. That's great. Yeah, Nashville's kind of hip, but it's also still country, right? And it's funny. I kind of do epitomize Nashville. So daily completely depends, which is what I love about this business. I mean, nothing is ever the same. So there's always a new problem to solve, which I just think is so much fun. Usually in the mornings, I have these little drive-bys with my team. So I'm in the office, here to answer any questions for the brokers or property managers or my project managers, go over any contracts or whatever we need to get done. And then typically I'll start my morning meetings shortly thereafter. You know, whether that's with a lender or an investor or a consultant that, you know, we're considering doing business with. we're always just out and about. I mean, I'm probably in the office 10% of the time. I'm usually out there in meetings. And I'll come back to the office around 5 or 6 o'clock at night, work another, 30 minutes to an hour, responding to emails and doing whatever else I need. But it just depends. Like Monday, we'll be driving down to Chattanooga and spending the entire day down there because we've got a couple of projects going down there. So it's fun, man. I mean, every day is different.
So you're one of those in the field types. As I kind of, because I have a law enforcement career, I always look at it like, well, are you the officer going to the call, or are you the dispatcher that's sort of running the scene? You like to be out there in the field. That's
right. I mean, I just feel like if I'm sitting in the office all day, I'm not getting any work done. Even if I am, getting work done, I got to get out there and I got to put my hands on the building and get my eyes on the buildings and see what's going on to make me feel like I'm actually accomplishing something.
That's good. I think there's people that like to make decisions based off of solely data. I'm not saying that you're not using data or that I don't use data, but there's people that only want to look at data. Then there's other people that sort of get themselves in the middle of the project and then go by the feel. And I don't think that's wrong. We often say don't trust your feelings. And in some cases that's true. But at other times when we describe feelings, what we're actually talking about is your subconscious guiding you towards the right decision that's processing data that you're just not consciously aware of. Is that why you think you feel more comfortable seeing these projects and being there on the ground floor?
It's so funny. We actually had this conversation this past week with the team because I recently hired an investment analyst. And he's got a background. He started off at Tractor Supply. He helped implement their use of artificial intelligence to help determine the next store locations based on a bunch of data points. And we were having the conversation of, up until this point, every acquisition that we've made has been based off of my gut feeling that this is going to be a good project. I want you to go through all of those projects, find the 100 or 200 data points that you can, and let's figure out why scientifically they were a good deal, right? Because we know that they panned out. I knew that it was going to work out, but why? There's got to be an inherent scientific reason behind the art.
That's so funny you say that. I had a conversation with Brandon Turner. Actually, it was a series of conversations on this exact topic. And Brandon's theory was when we make a decision like me or him, there's this algorithm in the back of our head that is processing all the information, and it speaks through us through a feeling where we can just tell that's a good idea or that's a bad idea. In order to articulate that to someone else, it can often take a lot of time thinking about it, or you just can't do it in the moment, but you know that it's right. And his theory was the art of being a good educator is taking that algorithm, turning it into words and expressing it to someone who then can put that algorithm in their own head. But that's what's so tricky about things. And I don't think it's unique to real estate investing. I think when I played basketball, I knew when I had the right players on my team and we were playing the right way, it felt right. And then what would happen is the points would accumulate and our defense would be where it was. And the data crunchers would then look at our performance and say, well, they're winning because they're shooting X percentage or because they're holding the other team to whatever. But the reason we did that was because we had the chemistry, and it was very hard to articulate that feeling. So it's encouraging to me to hear that you're in that same boat. And really, that's what BiggerPockets is doing, is we're trying to talk to the people that do this really well and get at what's in their head and get it out in the open. So on that topic, maybe tell me, what do you think is your secret power? What do you do better than other investors that has made you successful?
It's funny. I've actually told a lot of people this because I kind of realized it a couple of years ago, but my secret power is that I don't get stressed out. Now, I've definitely gotten to points where I get a little stressed, but I don't get stressed out. The biggest deal or one of the biggest deals I ever did, I had absolutely no business getting into it, but I was the only one involved that was never worried. My attorneys were looking at me going, what are you doing? Some of my friends and partners in other deals were looking at me going, I can't believe you're doing this. I had another developer call me that say, you're just crazy enough to pull this off. But I mean, man, I didn't have any money, right? I found this property that was, it was off market, and it had previously been listed at $35 million. And I negotiated with the seller to get it for $18 million and put it under contract, called one of my investors, asked him to borrow the earnest money because I didn't even have the money to do the earnest money. But that was pretty much it, man. I mean, I didn't get stressed out the entire time. I went and found the capital, put the deal together, and we ended up closing it within 6 or 8 months. And it's because of that superpower. I don't overthink things. I see a hurdle and I go, okay, let's find a way to jump over it.
That's really, really good advice. I remember when I was a newer investor, the second house I bought was on a corner of not really a busy street, but a well-traveled street. And somebody got drunk one night, ran into the front yard and crashed into the fence of the house. And it was like the second house I bought. And I remember beating myself up like, you're an idiot. What are you thinking buying a house on a busier street? You should have known this was going to happen. And somewhere in the middle of that, I caught myself and I was like, this is insane. Why? Who else would have ever known that's going to happen? Where does that voice even come from? Right.
Right.
And I recognize if I give into that, which I think a lot of people do, something goes wrong they didn't expect. It's, they then blame themselves and say, I never should have been an investor. And they get such a visceral emotional response to investing that they're almost traumatized by it. They never want to do it again. They're blaming themselves for things they can't control.
Right.
And in that moment, I made the decision. For the first year of owning a property, I'm not going to expect it to profit. I will just assume at minimum the first 12 months, things that didn't get brought up during the inspection, things that I didn't know could have gone wrong are going to go wrong. I do not expect myself of any property to make money in year one. Year two, that's what I'm going to expect. That like if things are going wrong at that point, I definitely made a mistake. And while that certain people hearing this probably think that sounds reckless because they like to try to account for every single variable, what it did was it freed me up emotionally to make moves that I thought were good, to take action I thought was smart, and not beat myself up for unforeseen things that happen. Did you have a similar moment in your career with where you made a switch like that?
Well, David, one thing I want to point out too is that the true brilliance behind that is that you're setting expectations. You're just happening to do it with yourself.
Yes.
Right. I mean, we always talk about setting expectations with sellers or setting expectations with buyers or tenants or whomever that might be. But a lot of the times we just don't do that with ourselves. And so then we start getting stressed out and whatever. Yeah. I mean, look, if you don't expect a property to profit in the first 12 months, you're not going to be worried if it doesn't. And if it does, that's great. You're going to be really happy. No, you know what? I think that, okay, so this will take us back a little bit, but this will probably give you a bit of insight as to why I think that I have this superpower. So, when I started my company, it was because I had a partner in the previous company that I was with that ended up, essentially strong-arming me out of a deal and owed me a lot of money and basically told me that if I wanted to get my money back from him, I'd have to sue him. And he'd been around the business a lot longer than I had. And I realized that day that if anything was going to ever happen, I would have to take control of it and do it myself. And so that was kind of a promise that I gave to myself is, you know what, that's just how we're going to operate moving forward. So if you want to get anything done, get it done. And, I have these very grand visions for my life. One of the, it was where I met Mike McCarthy from GoBundance was at the Hal Elrod's Blueprint Mastermind. But where I came up with this vision for myself of I want to own the most architecturally significant tower in the Nashville skyline. And so every project that I do, I have that in mind. If I think that this is going to get me one step closer to that, then I have to do it and make it happen.
That vision's very, very important. I think that's what drives us when things don't go well, because there's no way you work in an industry with as many moving pieces as real estate and have everything go well all the time. In fact, I think a lot of successful people in this industry are the ones like you. They could just shake it off when something goes wrong because you expect that things are going to go wrong. And
right.
For me, that vision has always been to put together an ecosystem where people can come to me to learn about real estate. And then when they decide they want to take action, I can provide all the pieces they need to do it. So no more bad agents, no more bad loan officers, no more bad contractors, no more insurance people that are ripping you off. I want to build companies that I have control over, just like you said, so that the people who sort of fit my profile that were in a similar situation as me have a place they can go and they know that they can be safe. And that is what pulls me through the days where I'm just like, I just want to throw my hands up and say, screw it. It's constantly difficult. Do you think that vision is something that every single investor, business owner needs to have?
You have to have it. I think it's just as important as writing down your goals because, what we do is not easy, right? I mean, I know that there's a lot of real estate and investors and professionals out there that try and make it seem like, oh, no money, you can do this and it doesn't take any time and whatever. I mean, it does. If we're being honest with ourselves, it takes time, it takes money. And there's a lot of risk involved, and it's hard work. If it was not hard, then everybody would be doing it. So I think it's important to have a vision like that, just to remind yourself what you're fighting for, right? I mean, we just went over for the development company. You know, we've hired, I think, 5 employees this year. So it was very important for all of us to sit down and go, what's our mission here? And we worked on that together so that there's no doubt at any point during the day of what everybody's working towards. I think it's critical that you, even if it's just yourself, that you have something like that for yourself.
Yeah, sometimes that's all the leader's doing, really, is they're just reminding everyone of the vision and trying to get them all aligned. It's really good. So
That's right.
Tell me, what is it you love about Nashville, and who is that the right market for?
Oh man, I love everything about Nashville. I grew up here and spent about a year in college in Knoxville, and was very excited to move back. I had a lot of friends that didn't want to come back because that was when Nashville was starting to grow and change. But Nashville to me it's such a unique city because it still has that small town character, and everybody's so nice to each other, despite the fact that we've been growing at record-setting paces. I mean, Nashville has just absolutely exploded over the last 5 years. Nobody could have seen this coming. And, you know, the Urban Land Institute put Nashville as #1 on their commercial real estate watch list for 2022. It's so cool because you've got, you know, the music industry, and I'm saying music specifically because country is big here, but people don't realize that rock and pop and rap are also huge here too. You've got healthcare and education, which are 2 major industries that have helped Nashville survive downturns very well. I mean, Nashville did very well in 2008, 2009. All things considered. And then you talk about all of the food and beverage and the cool neighborhoods and some of the architecture in those neighborhoods. I mean, we've got a very entrepreneurial spirit in this town, and that adds to character within the neighborhoods that I don't think could ever be replicated. So that's what I love. And not to mention it's in a great location in the country.
That's well said. There's a lot of people moving there right now.
Just quite a few.
All right, so tell me a real estate nightmare story. What's the craziest thing that's happened to you in the real estate game?
Oh, man, I love these because I love hearing everybody else's story. And for so long, I didn't have one until I did my first office investment, right? So at this point, this was 5 years into the business, and I had not syndicated any deals before. I had done a development deal, but I had not syndicated anything. So I put this building under contract, called 2 guys that I'd known for a few years that I think knew me pretty well. And I said, hey, guys, here's what I want to do. I need to borrow $50,000 each from you to do this project. And I threw in my commission on the deal, and we got rolling. Well, about 4 months into it, one of the partners disappears. And nobody can get a hold of him. We can't figure out what's going on. So now the other partner and I are kind of having to carry this deal, and it becomes this huge mess. Turns out that partner had been forging signatures on partnership documents, had been double selling shares in some of his investments, and he took a couple of the final draws on some construction projects that he was doing and never paid the contractors. Ran off with what I think is $5 or $10 million, disappeared into the night. When that kind of stuff happens, you start worrying about a federal investigation. So the Nashville Business Journal was calling us because they knew that we were involved with him in this one project. And some of his other partners were calling us because nobody knew what to do about all the other deals that he was involved in. And I ended up calling the tenant of the building that we had bought. And I said, look, we need to offload this property. Would you like to buy it? And ended up selling it to them for a good deal just so that we could get out of it. The other investor and I did just fine. We got the returns that we needed. But that's by far the craziest thing that I've ever been involved in because, you know, we were this close from getting frozen up in a federal investigation.
Would you say that was a symptom of just quick growth, fast growth, where that type of stuff tends to happen?
I think that he started to see dollar signs, and you're right. He wanted the fast, quick payday instead of the longevity. Because, man, if he had just stuck around, he would have been one of the most successful developers in Nashville. I mean, some of the projects that he was working on, I mean, you could tell like this guy was really working his way up. And I think that he just got dollar signs in his eyes and couldn't help himself.
It's one of the trickiest things of business is, and I have this problem all the time when I'm looking for partners. I can get a pretty good idea for who somebody is right now at this moment. I don't know who they're going to be when they get 10 million or $20 million in their name, right? You can't know what the weight of success is going to do to change you. It's much harder to resist than the adversity that will break most people. There's people that can get through that, but prosperity, man, it's very difficult. And that's one of the reasons I think it's good to learn the fundamentals of real estate and just consistently with hard work build it up, because it's kind of like slowly adding weight to the bar. You're not going to hurt yourself if you're throwing 5 pounds on. When you go throw 500 pounds on, they can actually just drop down and crush your chest, right? Like your character has to be developed along with your success. And the people that are looking for fast success, that's why it rarely ever works out. Would you disagree?
No, I completely agree with that. And I think it's also a factor of who you surround yourself with, right? I mean, if you've done a poor job of surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals and you suddenly become successful, now you might become a totally different person because you're afraid of how everybody around you is going to react. And, you know, there's so many factors that can be thrown into that, but I completely agree. I mean, you never know how somebody's going to act when they make a lot of money. You never know how they're going to act under extreme stress. And so that's one of the biggest lessons I learned very early on in the business is get everything in writing and prepare for any case scenario.
Do you have any David Green style analogies that you'd like to drop on us here?
Oh man, I think these are so funny that everybody always points them out because I'm like you, man. I use analogies for everything. I think it's the easiest way to relate to something. But knowing that you're from California and I'm from Nashville, I was like, well, let's kind of blend a little bit of something. So this is you looking at a deal that just does not make sense. Man, that makes about as much sense as putting diesel in a Tesla.
There you go. That's really good. You did combine Nashville and California.
I had to do a little bit of both.
Very well. Yeah. You know, Tesla just left California. Actually, they headed out to Texas.
Down to Austin now.
All right, Tyler. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate it. Any last words that you want to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I mean, I think the parting advice that I would give if you're wanting to get into commercial real estate or just want to become a real estate investor in general, just get out there and do it. You know, I learned so much that first year when I bought my first investment with a couple of investors. I bought 3 more properties that year. And it took me 5 years to get to that point. But as soon as you just do it, you realize how. You realize how. So that's my parting advice.
So for people who want to know more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, check me out on Instagram. I respond to all the DMs at commercial in Nashville with underscores. Or check out my YouTube channel, Tyler Cauble. I'm just teaching you guys how to do commercial real estate.
And that's Cauble, Cauble, right?
That's the one. Yes, sir.
They can find me at youtube.com/David Green Real Estate. So YouTube's got lots of stuff, and BiggerPockets is putting out more and more content. If you like today's show, please do me a favor. Add in the comments what you liked about Tyler and what you wish that we would have asked him, so I know for future episodes what type of stuff you like. And then if there's anything you wanted to hear from Tyler that you didn't get a chance to hear, please DM him or go leave a comment in one of his videos. Tyler's a good guy. He will get back to you. Tyler, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, David. Appreciate you too.